Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Spiritual Life Today. My name is Jennifer Allred, and it is always an honor to spend this time with you as one of your chaplains and one of your priests here at Episcopal Homes. And today is Wednesday, November 25th, and it is the eve of Thanksgiving. And we don't really call it Thanksgiving Eve like we do Christmas Eve. But I think most of us are in the mindset of the holiday, however adapted and strange it might feel this year. And so I'm sort of kicking off the holiday today, or maybe even yesterday, and taking it through the weekend. So I wanted to kind of kick us off one day early before Thanksgiving. And what I want to talk about today is the practice, the idea, and the practice of gratitude. Now, I know this isn't particularly new or original, but I think it's so important to our lives in community and to our lives on a spiritual path or journey of any kind. And we all know that, or we all have, I believe we all have had the experience of going through seasons in our lives when gratitude comes naturally, and it might feel really easy to be grateful and to show praise and give thanks. And then there are other seasons in life when it's not so easy, and those are familiar things that I think are pretty universal to pretty much all of us. Things like loss or grief, the loss of a loved one to death, or the end of a relationship, perhaps the loss of some kind of job or a home, a living situation. Perhaps there was grief or difficulty when you transitioned from wherever you came from before to Episcopal Homes. Even though there are so many gifts here and so much life here, there can often be loss and pain that comes with giving up whatever came before. And so those seasons of loss, those seasons of life that are, for whatever reason, challenging or painful, and can be trying to our sense of gratitude, and in fact can really upend our whole life of faith in some cases. And so gratitude is not always easy, and I think we all breathe easy for those times when it does come naturally, but we also recognize that there are times when it's harder. And who knows what this year brings for you? The global pandemic, the I think political vitriol and uncertainty, the state of race relations and racial violence in this country, the economic fears and problems that we are experiencing as a nation and as a world, as a global community, are vast. And who knows what problems or challenges you may be experiencing in your own life that are individual to you and not necessarily shared with the global community. But regardless of where you are, I want to spend a little bit of time naming gratitude and then just kind of reviewing and reflecting on some of the practices that can help us um, find or create gratitude even when we might not normally be sort of easily feeling it. So wherever you fall on that spectrum, I want to suggest to you that gratitude is possible, and that gratitude is, it is a noun, it's a thing, it's an idea, but it's also a verb, it's a practice, and it's a choice. So if if you are someone who's in a place to practice gratitude, then that's what we'll talk about today. And if you're not, it never hurts, I think, to hear it. And I also want to honor each of you who might be really hurting or struggling this holiday, for whom gratitude doesn't feel like an option right now. And I want to remind you that spiritual life is here for you, regardless of where you are, who you are, and where you are in that sort of reality. Okay, so first, I just want to give a couple simple definitions of gratitude. I think we all know what it is, but for me, sometimes it's really helpful to start at the beginning and to name things as if we don't already know them. And interestingly enough, sometimes we can discover new things in that process. So first, what is gratitude? Well, gratitude is essentially the recognition of unearned increments of value in one's experience, the acknowledgement of the positive things that come our way that we did not actively work toward or ask for. Gratitude is a feeling that spontaneously emerges from within. However, it's not simply an emotional response. It is a choice we make. We can choose to be grateful, or we can choose to be ungrateful, to take our gifts and blessings for granted. As a choice, gratitude is not an attitude or disposition. As writer Alexis de Tocqueville once described it, gratitude is a habit of the heart. Brother David Stendhal Rast, a Benedictine monk, reminds us that gratefulness is the inner gesture of giving meaning to our life by receiving life as a gift. So there's a lot there, but I think the thing I want to hold up most is that gratitude is not an emotion. I mean, it might have an element of emotion, but it's not primarily an emotion. And that gratitude is the recognition of something that we didn't particularly earn, that we didn't particularly ask for. Um, and so it's recognizing that the gifts in our lives that um, aren't something to do with merit or hard work or having earned something. And so a lot of this is about perspective and how we see things, but it makes gratitude perhaps a little um, set apart to recognize it as something that has an element of grace, an element of a gift that is unearned, of the recognition of something that we have, but we couldn't earn. We're not even capable of earning. It's just something that that we, for reasons we don't understand, and in a reality that we can't entirely control, are gifted in this life. And the next kind of idea, so that's what gratitude is. And then the next idea here is how we can practice it. So if gratitude's not an emotion, then we don't have to wait around for it to happen. In other words, we're not reliant or we're not at the mercy of our emotions in order to be grateful people. And I think that's really important because that's related to this idea that we practice gratitude. And so we can practice gratitude even when we don't feel grateful, and even when it's not at all obvious how we are gifted in this life. And again, I think, I believe we probably all, um, who are self-aware and who are on a spiritual journey, we all have seasons when, if we're honest, we don't feel very grateful. And I believe that's okay. And I believe God is with us in that, perhaps even more than any other season of our lives. But we don't necessarily feel that because it's very, very hard when we're suffering and when we are really in the throes of grief or loss to kind of see that gratitude. But we don't have to feel grateful. We don't have to have again, grateful gratitude is not an emotion, so we don't have to feel grateful in order to practice gratitude or express gratitude. And there's a lot of research out there that says the practice of gratitude can change our hearts and minds and can quite literally change our brain circuitry. So we used to think back in the old days, even 20 years ago, even as recent as 20 years ago, that our brains were fairly fixed. And we've learned through the study of the brain, through neuroscience, that the brain is really quite a lot more plastic than we thought. And so we can change our neural pathways with the repetition of new beliefs and new words and new ideas. And so that's why something like the practice of gratitude is so important. And that's why it's true that when we don't feel grateful, we can still practice gratitude. And there are several ways to do that. And I'm just going to mention uh, four kind of major ones. And then I'll close with a resource where you can go to learn more about this if you want to. But a very primary way to practice gratitude, as you may have already guessed, is meditation. And it's what meditation is about. It's about many things, but one major thing that meditation is about is opening up your internal space so that you can create more and different consciousness in your being. And holding a space, for me, I often picture it as sort of a visual space, but holding a space in your spiritual realm where you create space and hold space for God to be present and for energy to move in you and through you. And meditation is, in my experience, in my opinion, is really hard. And meditation, like gratitude, is something that takes practice. So if you are someone who has been at the practice of meditation for a long time, then you probably have a sense of how much time you can spend in meditation and what kinds of meditation work best for you. And if you're new, I would invite and encourage you just to take a few minutes a day. Just, set a time for yourself, even set a timer if it's helpful to you. But 1 or 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes spent in meditation every day can focus your attention in ways that may surprise you and can create space for God to do work in you that you may not have experienced before. So that's a wonderful place to take the practice of gratitude. Related to that, taking a few moments at the end or beginning of each day to reflect on those things in your life that you're grateful for can really change your reality. Perhaps even begin a gratitude journal where you can document even the smallest moments of gratitude. And friends, I know that when you've suffered a great loss, perhaps a death in your family, or something with your health where you've lost an ability, that a physical ability that you used to have, or you've gotten news of a new medical malady, that those can be times that it's especially hard to be grateful. But I find that that's where the smallest, the kind of very micro level is a great place to start, to be grateful for hot food or a roof over your head or a favorite TV show or someone on the staff that is particularly helpful to you. And just to really start kind of to keep your head where your body is and not necessarily get, big and grand, but to start very small, look around you and try to name a couple of things that you feel grateful for, even, or that you're, let me change that. Let me say that differently. A couple of things that you're aware of gratitude around, because I'm using this language of feeling grateful, but we talked about how gratitude is not an emotion, but it is an experience, it is an idea, and it is maybe most of all a verb. So keeping a kind of mental gratitude list at the beginning or end of every day, perhaps even writing it down in a journal, or finding a friend or a loved one, or um, even an object in the space where you live that you can report your gratitudes to. And, that might be some kind of a little spiritual or religious icon or a stuffed animal or a friend that you can call or text. I often tell people this, well, actually, not all that often, but I do sometimes share with people that I have a circle of 5 women and we text our gratitudes to one another every evening. And I've done this now for almost 7 years with this group of women. And it's profound and powerful for a number of reasons because it keeps me connected to people. It has helped me grow in love and appreciation for these women. And it has given me a sense of awe and wonder about who they are and how their spiritual journeys and gratitude journeys have evolved. It sparks for me awareness of things that I might not remember to be grateful for. Maybe one of them says, well, I'm grateful for my car. And maybe I haven't thought about that in a while. Maybe I've been taking for granted the fact that I have a vehicle that I get to drive. Or sometimes they really surprise me. One of them recently said, "I'm grateful for my addiction." She's in recovery from an addiction. And she said, "I'm grateful for my addiction because as awful as it was, it taught me how to love and how to be present and how to grow up as a person." So it's a profound practice for me, and I commend it to you as something that you might also find helpful. Um, Another way it's kind of related to meditation, but another way to practice gratitude is through mantras, the use of mantras. And a mantra is a Sanskrit idea or word, but it's just a simple word or phrase that helps you focus your attention in perhaps in meditation or prayer. And it allows you to, or it helps, it's a tool that helps you to bring focus to your breathing and allow you to kind of draw your breath into longer cycles. And so one way that a mantra is used is after at least 10 distinct breaths, take a deep inhale and then repeat out loud or to yourself the mantra as you exhale. And the mantra itself is up to you to choose, but it could be as simple as gratitude. That could become your mantra. You could just say gratitude as you breathe. Or you could say, "I am grateful." Or you could say, "I am gratitude." Or you could say, "I feel grateful." And you could say, um, "In this moment, I feel grateful." And you could even say, "I'm grateful for a specific thing." So your mantra is up to you. The content of your mantra is up to you. But if you've never done it before and you don't know where to start, I am grateful is a wonderful place. And then the fourth way to practice gratitude that I want to review is the idea of acting in gratitude. And so these can be very simple acts of service, something perhaps some little thing that we do nice for another person who we know is struggling or hurting, or maybe we don't know, but we suspect that they could use a little positive energy, which really who among us doesn't qualify as someone who could use a little positive energy. But just speaking nicely to someone, praying for someone or something or some place in the world that is perhaps in conflict or in need. Um, these acts of gratitude are another way of practicing gratitude. So in closing, don't ever be afraid to express yourself in gratitude, and know that your practices of gratitude can change you, but can ultimately change the world. And if that sounds grand, oh well. I believe it's the case that our hearts and minds, our actions and our thoughts really matter, and that God is present with us when we strive to recognize the gifts in our lives, to recognize the gifts in the lives of those around us, and to recognize the gifts of this great, beautiful, broken, wonderful, mysterious planet that we live on. And if you want to learn more about gratitude, or if you are someone who likes resources or likes the internet, Brother Stendhal Rast, whom I mentioned earlier, is a Benedictine monk who has a whole website on gratefulness, and it's gratefulness.org. And there's some wonderful resources there. And he's just kind of a wonderful guy and has a couple of TED Talks and other resources like that. But for now, I wish you grateful hearts, and I wish you the inspiration to practice your gratitude in ways that may be new or may be very familiar to you. And I wish you a wonderful, peaceful, grateful Thanksgiving.